All right, can everyone hear me? All right, hey, I'm kind of shy, so I'm going to speak first. So what is my message? Listen, I'm just going to talk to you about what I experienced over 28, 29 years in the Marine Corps. And I get the opportunity to stand in front of Marines and talk about leadership. And that's really what this is going to be about. I'm not pointing fingers, but some of you will probably start to feel itchy and scratchy as I'm talking, because it might apply to you. And if it does, you need to look yourself in the mirror and you need to right-side yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Over 28 years, I'm telling you, I had my head space and timing adjusted from time to time. And that's a good thing, because it keeps you honest. And this is what this is really about, is sometimes we just need to adjust our head space and timing, all right? We got a battle going on, and we're gonna fix it. And I'm telling you, we're gonna fix it within the enlisted ranks, we're gonna fix it in all ranks, but we're gonna fix it, all right? Because it's really, I could stand out here all day and talk about it, the general can stand out here all day and talk about it, but the ones that's gotta fix it, it's gonna be sitting right here in this audience. You're my target audience, and I'll explain why. But before I kind of get into really where I'm at and what we're gonna do, we all like history, right? We're on Parris Island, so I'm gonna talk history. All right, 10 November 1775, what happened? Hey, we were born, right? 238 years. And if you go back in the history books, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a guy named Captain Samuel Nichols. And Captain Sam Nichols was tasked by the Continental Congress to form 2 battalions of Marines. And so what he did is he says, how can I achieve that such daunting task? And he turns around and he says, I need to find me a recruiter. So he goes out and finds a guy by the name of Robert Moulin. Now Robert Moulin just happened to be the chief proprietor of Tun Tavern. So along with a lot of hard work, they turn around, they form 2 Continental Marines, and we are born and known as the few and the proud, the United States Marine. Look it up in the books. All right, look it up. That's our history. And you should know where our history starts. Now, what I really want you to stop and think about, over 2¼ centuries have passed. And that's a long time. And for many of you, some of you have been in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, 16 years, 20, 30 years. You stop and you look at the next generation and you look at it and you say, God, we're all messed up. How do we even survive? How are we gonna do this? All right? I'm here to tell you we're gonna be just fine. We're in good hands. And I'll talk about that. But I'll tell you, one thing hasn't changed over all that time, and that's who we are and what we do. And I think it captures in the first verse of the Marines' hymn. And I want you just to listen to the words. First to fight for right and freedom, we keep our honor clean. We're proud to claim the title, United States Marine. That's it. That simple verse is what we do. If we didn't have the Captain Samuel Nichols and Robert Moulin out there finding our Marines, I can't send them to glorious Parris Island to make them. They can't go to the School of Infantry, and then they can't go fill our ranks of our beloved brothers and sisters out there that are paying the ultimate sacrifice. Does anyone know what the number 1,311 represent? It's the number of Marines KIA'd over the past 13 years. How about 13,484? That's the number of Marines wounded in action. We're the smallest force, but paying the most ultimate sacrifice. But that's who we are. There's nothing magical. We're not here because we wanted to go to college. We're here because we fight our country's battles. Let's not get it twisted. Everyone in this room is responsible for that. Whether you're wearing blue trousers, whether you're wearing green trousers, whether you're in a supporting role or not, you're all here to fight our country's battles. We have to make them Marines. What you do matters here. It's important. It's important to our lineage, our ethos, our core, and everything else. I need you to understand it. It's time for that headspace and timing. Some will call it a reset. Okay, we're going to reset. I'm here to tell you we're going to take back our core. First to fight for right and freedom. We keep our honor clean. That's where we're getting it twisted. Now I'm telling you, I've sat in that squad bay out there. I've lived in open squad bays. I've lived in barracks many, many years. We've gotten something wrong. Some of our brothers and sisters are just plain wired wrong. And we need to fix it. This past 60 days, this is 60 days, this is what the commanding general has to deal with over 60 days. A staff sergeant convicted of rape, sentenced to 18 years confinement, reduction to E1, dishonorable discharge. A sergeant convicted of aggravated sexual assault, sentenced to 8 years confinement, reduction to E1, dishonorable discharge. A staff sergeant convicted of attempted sexual contact, sentenced to 100 days confinement, reduction to E3. A sergeant convicted of adultery, assault consummated by battery, sentenced to 2 years confinement, reduction to E1, BCD. A lance corporal convicted of aggravated sexual assault, abusive sexual assault, wrongful sexual contact, sentenced to 371 days confinement, reduction to E1, BCD. A master sergeant convicted of disobeying a superior commissioned officer, an orders violation, sentenced to reduction to E7, forfeiture of $1,500 pay per month for 5 months, reprimand. A corporal convicted of aggravated assaults, was sentenced 90-day confinement, reduction to E1, BCD. Lance corporal convicted of disrespect, disobeying a lawful order, sentence reduction, E1. Gunnery sergeant convicted of orders violation, false official statement, assault consummated by battery, sentenced to reduction to E5, forfeiture for $2,000 for 6 months. Corporal convicted use of a controlled substance, false official statement, impaired operation of a vehicle, possession of a controlled substance, introduction to a controlled substance, was sentenced to 10 months confinement, reduction to E1, BCD. Staff sergeant convicted of violation of a lawful general order, false official statement, abusive sexual contact, sentenced to 4 years confinement, reduction to E1, forfeiture all pay and allowance, BCD. I can go on and on. I call it the 5 deadly sins. I can contribute any misconduct or look at any package and review it over my 5 deadly sins. It's alcohol, it's DUIs, it's underage drinking, it's binge drinking, in a barracks, underage. It's alcohol, it's drugs, spice, narcotics, drugs, cocaine. I got it all. It's harassment. Now I'm talking sexual harassment, and I'm talking plain old harassment, where we think it's still right to haze fellow Marines. I'm talking about misuse of government assets, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a government computer. I'm talking about assault, physical and sexual. And it's happening. The enemy's in our barracks. And the sad thing is, it's right under our own nose. Told the general, a lot of times the Marines, they come in my office after an NJP, after a lot of things, and they're crying, snot bubble coming out of their nose, tissue, what am I gonna do? What about my family? What's gonna go on? What happened? You know what the one common denominator of everything I just mentioned to you is? Can anyone guess what that is? They're all avoidable. Everything I just mentioned, you, the individual, control. It's your career, Marines. I'm here to tell you we got too many of our brothers and sisters falling on the sword. And our sword, hey, it's not supposed to be bloody by our own. You need to think about this. See, I got shelf life. I got my reading glasses, I got my surgeries, I got a bad back and everything else. Hey, the core's been passed on. The torch is yours. It matters what you do with it. It really does. Hey, Parris Island, you heard it today, October 15, 1915 in October is when Marines land aboard and take control of Parris Island. Now, there was a detachment here a lot earlier. 100 years. There's all kinds of generation gaps in that time. There is. And we've been able to get through things. It's time for us to buckle up. It's time for us to look inward. It's time for us to call each other out. The Corps I grew up with wouldn't have tolerated this. General's going to talk about some startling numbers. And I just scratched my head. I said it wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be a sexual assault in that barracks if PSC Buck was sitting around there, I'm telling you. Now, I'd probably be in an orange suit with handcuffs on, being taken away if I caught you. And I'm just being real with you. Now, we all stand in formation, and I was in your formation. I remember being young, and I look out, and I used to look at my leaders, and we would judge them. We would look at them and say, how did they get promoted? Who's making this stuff up? And that's easy. It's easy to criticize from where you're at. I will tell you, lead, follow, or get out of the way. You're either in front of a formation, in a formation, or behind a formation. I will tell you as a Marine, if you find yourself in a hole with a shovel, put the shovel down. I will tell you if it smells bad at 06, it smells even worse at 1600. I will tell you if you allow a low standard to exist, it becomes your new standard. I will also tell you never be the senior man or woman caught with a secret. That's the Corps I grew up with. I walked my post from flank to flank and took no crap from any rank. I'm not there to be your friend. When I stood duty, I was the direct representative of the commanding officer, and I was proud of that. It's little things. The state of my barracks. I was proud of where I lived and how I lived. I'm not telling you got to change your way of life. They're in my business. Snitches get stitches, Sergeant Major. We can't be ratting on each other. Really? Is that where we've gotten to? We need to keep each other in check. It makes us edgy. We have to do that to one another. We have to call each other out in the PX. We have to call each other out in them barracks. I'm driving a vehicle. I watch a group of Marines, 3, 4 PFCs, Lance Corporals walking about behind a bunch of recruits. What happens when you walk with more than 2 people in a formation? You're what? You're in step. Period. Do we walk around with cell phones and talk on cell phones? We walk around with our hands in our pockets? Do we chew bubble gum and walk? Do we smoke and walk? Don't ask me to tell you what page it's on. $174,411 active duty Marines today on duty. 145,400 414 are sergeants and below. 83.2% of the Marine Corps is an E5 and below. Who's supposed to check who into the boards? Why are you in my business? Why are you in my house? You don't want me in your house? Fix your house. But again, I grew up with BAMSIS, where S was the most important. We supervise. It's not micromanage. You can call whatever you want. We lead. We inspect. You don't expect nothing. You inspect everything. You all joined for a reason. You all walked into the recruiting offices in a time of war. You all had a tag that you pulled. It's you. That Corps that you want is still alive and well. It's up to you to maintain it. 13% of the Marine Corps retires. That 13% is entrusted with passing off the lineage and the histories and the customs and the courtesies to the next generation. If I don't stand it up in front of you and talk about leadership, then I shouldn't get paid. If I got staff NCOs and officers that don't want to stand up in front of the Marines to talk about leadership, then they shouldn't be in. I'm not in the Corps because I need a job. I'm in the Marine Corps because I love it. And I've always been taught, you leave an area better than the way you found it. We've all heard that, right? It's no different. Leave it, love it, protect it. It's bottom line, it's always will be what's best for the institution. And the institution will be defined by your character. Your character is what will set you apart. And it's what sets us apart from all other branches of the service. It's easy for us to talk leadership traits and principles. When's the last time we've read them? Do we know what character is? Character is what takes them words of honor, courage, commitment, and transforms them into a visible manifestation of the way you are. It's a behavior thing. It takes leadership traits and turns them into an action. First, to fight for right and freedom, we keep our honor clean. We're proud to claim the title United States Marine. We hear it day in, day out. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's the person to our left or right. It's the ones we haven't even served yet. That's what it's about. It's the institution. We need to stop and remember that once in a while. We need to look inward. I need your help. I need you to carry the torch. I don't think I'm asking a large task. You need to stand up and take over your Corps. Hey, I stood on the generation prior to me, shoulder, the look. It's time for you to stand on my shoulder to take a look. Because I'm telling you, every week we graduate a bunch of Marines that'll be looking to stand on your shoulder so they can continue to go down the right path. This is what it's about, Marines. I need you to see it. I need to open your aperture just a little bit and look beyond more than just you or me. And look at it from an institution. We understand? Yes, hey, I've learned over time Marines will break your heart. and they will. You're like a bunch of children to me, trust me. I lose a lot of sleep at night wondering what I could have done better or how we could have been better to prevent someone from getting in trouble. And there is no joy in watching someone else be in trouble. Because the title can't be purchased, it can't be rent, you can't lend it out to someone, it can only be earned, right? It's only earned through hard work, sweat, and tears. You've all earned the Eagle Globe and Anchor, meaning you all now represent that Eagle Globe and Anchor. So again, Marines, standing in front of you, I'm going to talk about leadership today, and I'm going to talk about it until probably the day I die. And I'll probably write a little note to y'all after the fact. All right? Take care of one another. I wish you all the best of luck in everything you do in your careers. I really mean that. I wish you the best of luck and go forward and do great things. At this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the Commanding General of MCRD Paris Island, who does not need an introduction. But stand by. Attention on deck.
Please be seated. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay, Marines. Good afternoon. First, thank you, Sergeant Major. Marines, let me start by telling you we're not broken. And the things that you do on this island are so critically important to the health of our Corps. And quite frankly, I think we do them very, very well. So my intent today, this is not an ass chewing, this is not anything but the delivery of a message from your Commandant. Now I'm sure that many of you have read the Marine Corps Times, or you heard, or you've seen that, hey, we're putting Marines in the Charlie uniform, we're changing the way we do duty, tightening up the barracks. You've seen that, right? Right. So, and you're wondering, well, what is this all about? What now? Marines, let me start by saying that our Corps is in good hands. So I've been gone for about 6 weeks, and I was up in the Quantico area, the National Capital Region, for a number of different issues. One of them, Marines, was to spend about 5 weeks at something that they call the General Officer Symposium. So every year, the Commandant brings all 84 general officers together into Quantico, and he kind of resets us. He brings us all up to speed, his challenges, our challenges, and he kind of gives us his direction. And you know, Marines, the way the Corps works is we salute smartly, and we do exactly what the Commandant tells us to do. That's what makes us good, by the way. We speak with one voice. So what I'm going to do with you today is I'm going to share with you a little bit of what's happening in our Corps, the challenges that we've got. I want to bring you up to speed. I want to tell you everything that I know about our future. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our Commandant's focus. A little bit of it the Sergeant Major has already begun to speak about. But let me first talk to you about where we are as a Corps. First off, things in Afghanistan continue to go very, very well. We got about 6,500, 7,000 Marines who are out there right now. We're going to bring that down to a 1-star level, kind of a MEB, regimental reinforced size evolution here with the next turnover in January. And by December of 2014, our Marines will come out of Afghanistan. And they will come out, and we will have been able to say that we did everything that we said we were going to do in Afghanistan. So just as in Iraq, in the Al-Anbar province. The Marine Corps led the way in that turnover, in that reawakening. The Marines have done that in Afghanistan, and you should be very proud of what they're doing out there. So that's going well. Our focus operationally, Marines, is in the Pacific. It is. There's a lot going on in the Pacific, and the Commandant's intent is that by 2017, we'll have about 22,000 Marines west of Hawaii. There's a lot of shakeup. We're going to have Marines in Guam. We're going to have some Marines in Australia. We're going to move the division headquarters into Hawaii. We're going to give back everything south of Kadena in Okinawa. We're going to give up half of Camp Foster for those of you who have been in Okinawa. So that all is going on right now. Why? Why the Pacific, General, when there's so much going on everywhere else in the world, right? So we could come out of Afghanistan, who knows what's going to happen, right? Iran's about to get the bomb. Egypt's a mess. Libya's a mess. Things are happening in Africa and Nigeria and so forth. There's all kinds of hot spots. Well, Marines, in the Pacific, there are the 5 largest economies in the world, and it's growing. We have a lot of trade and treaties in the Pacific. And so the folks who look at the tea leaves say we've got to have a footprint in the Pacific, and so we will. So there's that going on. But the fact remains, Marines, that our country can no longer afford the size military that we have had over the last 13 years of war. Just can't afford it. We're broke. So those of you who came in since 2001, what you understand about the Corps is that pretty much we got what we needed. Uniforms, kit, equipment, all of this stuff is new. That's not, by the way, the Corps that I came into. I came in 1986. People were coming in, Marines, and they were taking light bulbs out of the conference rooms. They would take your pen back. You know, that was the Corps that I came in on. So maintenance of equipment, how we took care of things really mattered because we needed it. So Marines, what you need to keep in mind and some of the decisions that our Commandant has to make, many of them revolve around the budget. You know, about 2 years ago, he directed, seeing that we were going to have these significant budget issues, he directed this thing called the Force Structure Review Group. And so what he was trying to do was get ahead of the budget, do a capabilities-based review of what the Corps should look like. No other service did that, by the way. What capabilities should we have? What is affordable given the strategy, the national security strategy that we'd been given? And so he came back after that year-long study, and he went to the Secretary of Defense and the President. He said 186,000 is what we can safely come down to. That was up from a wartime high of 202,000. So we tried hard to stay at 186,000 Marines. Here's the problem. Sequestration happened. Suffice to say, Marines, I could go through what sequestration really means. It just means we're broke. It just means that the government is no longer willing to afford what we would like to do within the Department of Defense. Sequestration really hurt. And so we went screaming past 186,000, and then we tried to stay at 182,000 Marines. Well, we can't afford that either. So Marines, where we are right now is we are working hard inside of Washington, D.C. to defend a 174,000 Marine Corps. 174. So that's the upper window. It would be anything from 150,000 to 174, and we think we can defend 174. But what does that look like to our Corps? Well, what that looks like is 2 MEF basically becomes a MEB. So the MEF commander is dual-hatted in Marine Forces Command in Norfolk. So you basically come down to a MEB-size element in North Carolina. You still have 3 Marine Expeditionary Units there. You retain the MEF structure in 1 MEF, and they are still global responders. Okinawa remains a MEF, but it's always been a smaller MEF, and it is regionally focused in the Pacific. So what you have is the ability on the East Coast to respond globally, but not with the same size forces you have on the West Coast. So the MLG, how many of you are logistics Marines? You know, so we went from functionally aligned in the MLGs, supply battalion and truck battalion and engineer battalion, to this CLR construct. MLG is going to go back to being functionally aligned again. So they have major restructure going on in the MLG. We're going down, you know, the unit of measure Marines for the Corps, it's all about the infantry. We're all here to support the infantry. The unit of measure is the infantry battalion. We're going to go down from a high under the 202K plan of 27 infantry battalions to 21 infantry battalions. That hurts. So when you think about 7 Marine Expeditionary Units, a couple of standing MEBs, special purpose MAGTAFs, with a 1 to 2 dwell, you run out of Schlitz very, very fast with 21 infantry battalions. So, oh, by the way, if, for instance, Korea kicks off, we all go and we stay. There's none of this 7-month kind of go home. And, you know, as blistering as the op tempo was in the last 13 years, Marines, we go and stay. That's the Marine Corps that our country can afford, we hope. 174. So that's where we are, and that's what we're trying to defend. That's not over, by the way. We're still fighting that. The Quadrennial Defense Review is ongoing right now. And without getting into too much detail about that, while we think we can defend that, there is another parallel planning group going on, and there's some very senior Marines, retired Marines, who think and have proposed that we go down to 155. That would hurt. That changes the way we fight. A lot more standoff, a lot less boots on the ground, a lot less forward presence, substantially changes who we are. So that's happening out there right now, and it's important that you know that. This is the Corps that you're sending these young Marines, these 522 that we graduated today. That's the Corps that you're sending them out to. Are we going to be any less busy? Nope. And the Corps, our Commandant, has been the only service that has said, we're not going to stop doing anything that we're doing. We're just going to do more with less. No other service has said that. We will continue to focus on readiness, and we will continue to be our nation's force in readiness. That's what we do. It's who we are. But here's the other fight that we've got, Marines, and this is really what I'm here to talk to you about today. How many of you are tired of getting sexual assault training? Be honest. Be honest. I'm raising my hand with you. I'm with you. Because my guess is that every single one of you who raised your hands, and probably most of you who did not, are not the ones that are out sexually assaulting people. You get it. The problem, Marines, is that there are a whole lot of Marines that still just don't get it. You know, and as we have gone through all of these evolutions of training, you know, holy cow, we've got annual training, we had the leadership stand down, we had no zebras training, we had sex signals, we got every flavor of training. And it's still happening. And Marines, I would tell you that one of the things that I did while I was off of Parris Island was I worked with the Office of Legislative Affairs up on the Hill, and I wandered through Congress, and they asked me to talk to some of the congressmen about sexual assault in the military and commanders and the role of commanders in adjudicating some of these cases. Because what's at stake right now is the loss of the commander's ability to have adjudication of these cases. So there's this sense in DC that we messed this up and we'll never be able to recover it. And so if the worst happened and someone was sexually assaulted, in essence, I would refer that case to some court-martial convening authority that is not part of this command, and it just becomes, it's like a big law firm up in DC, Marines, they just handle the case as it comes. So I would lose the ability to look any of my Marines in the eye and say, I'm going to fix this. I'd also lose the ability to look at the offender and say, I'm going to take care of you too. And for people like me, that's absolutely devastating from a command perspective. But see, Marines, it's not just about sexual assault. And that's not what this discussion is about. Because Marines, sexual assault is just the latest issue that our Commandant has been dealing with. Because the last time he was here, he probably stood right where I'm standing right now, and he talked to you about his heritage tour. And he talked about the urination video. And he talked about all of those other things that are very, very difficult to explain when we're just so used to talking about honor, courage, and commitment. It just doesn't fit. They're just symptoms of bad behavior. So it's sexual assault. The Sergeant Major mentioned hazing, alcohol. Do you know, Marines, do you know that the statistics say that 50% of our Marines binge drink? Binge drink. Go out with the deliberate intent to just drink until they can't stand up. I find that pitiful, by the way. I have no sympathy for that. I just think it's absolutely pitiful behavior. But oh, by the way, that behavior leads to all this other nonsense that is just not who we are. It just isn't. It's not why you joined. It's certainly not why I wear the uniform. But it is what the statistics say. Sexual assault, domestic violence, hazing, DUIs, suicides, hazing to the point of suicide. All of these, Marines, are just symptoms of areas that are causing us, who we are as Marines, to fracture. And so the Commandant this year said, all right, generals, we're going to fix this. We have been at war for 13 years, and make no mistake, Marines, we nailed it. Nobody has the record of success in Iran or in Iraq or Afghanistan like the United States Marine Corps. No one. Our families were there with us. Phenomenal performance. So there's absolutely no question about who we are as war fighters. But Marines, we have evidence that we, in some cases, have forgotten who we are when the battle stops raging. Do you know that of all the sexual assault that happens in our Corps, 94% of it happens, our victims are in their first term? And do you know that 54% of those sexual assaults happen in our own barracks? Think of that. These are males and females, by the way. They happen in our own barracks. How do you explain that to mom? If you're a leader, how do you explain that to dad? Now listen, Marines, every Friday I stand out there and I try to encourage parents. I try to encourage them that their Marines they may not always be safe, but they will be well led, and we're going to take care of them. Hazing. You know, the only thing I want to say to folks who decide that they got a better way is, who do you think you are? What kind of arrogance is it that leads to hazing? Even on this island, who do you think you are? Your way is somehow better? So Marines, what we're talking about today is what the Commandant would like to call the reawakening. We're not broken. You're good Marines. But you came in the Corps to do something special with your life. You came in the Corps to choose, and you chose to live by a different standard. I was talking to the honor grads today, and I said, why did you join? Ma'am, I want to be part of something bigger than me and better than me. Ma'am, I wanted discipline. Ma'am, I wanted to be somebody. Captain Blair, can you give me the... So the Commandant and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps went to the Sergeant's course in Camp Lejeune, and he asked some of the non-commissioned officers there, tell me, who are we? And this was from sergeants. We are the history of generations yet to come. Our actions, ethics, traditions are what people will remember about us. We're a community of sacrifice. We're loyal. We are in a marriage with our country, and our life is not as important as our country or the people we swore to protect, to include our fellow servicemen and women. We are a living oath to the morals, values, and principles that we believe in and stand for, and what we were founded upon. We're professional warriors and will fight to the death for our country or anyone who wears our uniform. We're brothers and sisters bonded by selflessness and duty. Next slide, please. What do? We fight for the freedoms of our country and the well-being of its citizens. We are American ambassadors to foreign lands. We endure the harsh conditions of war so that those who are unable to protect themselves can sleep well at night. We defend our country, fight our nation's battles, and are prepared to give our life in its defense. We're our country's guardian angels. We sacrifice body, mind, life, and family to serve. We miss birthdays, funerals, births. We are a faceless entity. We are American. We are United States Marines. You know what I thought when I saw this, Marines? I thought, my drill instructors and my recruiters, they taught them that. I felt very good about that, because that all starts right here. So that's why I'm telling you, we're not broken. And your Commandant does not think we're broken. In fact, he was so encouraged by that. But do you see where that just doesn't fit with some of this nonsense that's been going on? It just doesn't fit. So where are these Marines when 94%, when those victims are victimized in our own barracks? Where are these Marines? Because I think my experience in 27 years tells me that most of my Marines are this. That's why I'm still a Marine. How do we let the 5% get away with what they get away with? How do we? This is who we are. This is what you came in for. You know, Marines, after the Zebras training, remember the Zebras training? Those of you who went to it? I hated that, by the way. Not the message, but the delivery. You know why? I sat in the back of the theater with Sergeant Major Buck, and the language that they used was offensive to me. It was offensive to me not because I haven't heard it before or because my ears are tender. It was offensive to me that those folks who developed that training thought this is the only language these Marines will understand. It pissed me off. And I said, don't come back to Parris Island. Because you will not stand on a stage in my depot and think that that's the only language that these Marines understand. But then I asked a couple NCOs, and I said, what did you think of the training? Sergeant Major asked them, what do you think of the training? And they said, it was good. It was good. And he said, well, what about the language? No big deal, it's the way Marines talk. Really? better than that. We're better than that. Thoughts, language, action. Thoughts, language, action. Who are you? Are you the Marine that you came in to be? Those of you who work so hard, and I know you work hard. Listen, I see these guys dressed like recruiters. You know, a few months ago, Sergeant Major and I, we hit 24 recruiting stations in about, I don't know, it seemed like we were constantly on the road, talked to every single one of our recruiters because I got problems. I got guys who look great in this uniform. Think about it. Intentionally, we put them in their Sunday best. They look great. We train them, we give them professional selling skills. We teach them to go find mini-dems, and we send them out there, and quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, there are no rules out there. It's the front lines. There's no rules. There's underage drinking. There's promiscuous behavior. There's things you know better than I do. And there's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of temptation. And some of them, sadly, have given into that temptation. And we have worked so hard to keep honest Marines honest. Putting a web of protection around them, accountability for each other, make the right decision every day. Wake up, look at yourself in the mirror, and say, today the answer is no. Today, when that pretty little 16 or 17-year-old girl comes up to me and says, what do you think? Today the answer is no. And then you go home at night and you go, okay, that wasn't so bad. And day by day, your character is developed. So that it becomes a whole lot easier to say, Marines don't do that. I don't need it that bad. She's not worth my career. Marines, this reawakening that we're talking about, this resetting the core, this is not hard for you, because you know who we are. You teach it here. So let's talk about the duty, because Marines, that's just in a lot of ways, it's a visual reminder for you every day of what we're trying to do. Why are we putting Marines in the service uniform? Because that man is on duty. Why are we giving him a weapon? Because he has authority. He has the authority to enforce discipline. He has a solemn duty, on duty, to represent his commanding officer. That's why. There should be no question as you walk into the barracks who's in charge. A Marine on duty has no friends. That's just one thing. That's just one thing. That's just duty. That's just taking back the barracks so that they are a safe place. Nobody is trying to mess with your quality of life. This is about following through on the promise that we gave you when we made you a Marine. To give you boundaries, to give you discipline, to give you a righteous life that you will be proud of. That's what this is about. You know, Marines, when I came in, much different Marine Corps that I have talked about. I've already talked about the money. We didn't have the money back then, but back when I was a young lieutenant, we even wore a different uniform. Some of you might remember break and starch. Remember break and starch? So we had these uniforms. Here's what that means. We had these uniforms that we starched. You sent them to the cleaner. You want light, medium, or heavy, right? We all took heavy. Give me heavy. You had to break starch. You had to punch your arm through, right? You're smiling at me. You broke starch a couple times a week. We walked around like this, but we looked good. What do we do on Sunday nights? We spit shined our boots. Why? Why? Because that's who we were. We were proud to wear the Marine Corps uniform, because that's who we were. So we've made things a little bit more comfortable. That's okay. But we lost a little bit. We can get that back. Okay? We're going to get that back. Because how you look matters. When I wear this uniform on Fridays, I get a lot of work done in my office. The Commandant is going to put his Marines back in this uniform 5 days a week in the National Capital Region. You got orders to Quantico? Go buy some more shirts. You know what I mean? Why? Because we're the Corps. We're different. We're better. We have a higher standard. None of what I'm talking to you about, by the way, Marines, there's no new order going to be published. There's no new policy. They're already out there. Okay? So for those of you who've been around for a little bit, you say, well, you know the way we used to do it? Amen, have at it. I'm unleashing you. It's going to make us better. But the Sergeant Major's numbers, think about it. 174,000 enlisted Marines, and 145,000 of them are sergeants and corporals and lance corporals. This is your Corps. This is the Corps that you asked for. Our intent is to deliver on that promise. It doesn't have to be harder, by the way. We're just going to stand up straighter. We're going to police our own. We're going to tighten things up just a little bit. We're going to bring in the best of the old days, and we're going to fall in on all the things that we have learned over the last 13 years. Because guess what? With 174,000 Marines and all the work that we've got ahead of us, we need the best of every generation. Do you understand? Good. So listen, here's your homework. Leading Marines, sustaining the transformation. Hopefully you've started to read these. You know, the interesting thing about these books, they've been sitting there the whole time. And I think when you start to read those, I'm sure that many of you have already begun, there's some good stuff in these books. Some great stuff in these books. If you're a leader, and that's all of you, I'm going to ask you to sit around and talk to each other about these books. But I want you to wake up in the morning, and I want you to ask yourself, what am I going to do today to sustain the transformation in my Marines? What did I do yesterday to sustain the transformation? Because what happened today, Marines, what happened today, the pride that those Marines felt, you know as well as I do, that's got to be sustained. Or they'll forget. You'll forget. You don't have to. So Marines, my final message to you, I wanted you to understand the why. You deserve to know the why. You deserve to know why we have to tighten up. You deserve to know why we expect to take back the barracks. Because it's going to make us better. Because we know how to do this. We already learned these lessons. We kind of lost our focus a little bit, probably for good reason, but we have timing and opportunity now to tighten things up. What's it going to look like on Paris Island? I really don't know yet. I don't know exactly how many things are going to change, no kidding, with regard to the barracks and duty. I'm going to let the sergeants major and the first sergeants tell me how we're going to execute this. But you deserve to know why we're doing this, and that's why we're doing it. Okay. What questions do you have for me? concerns, gripes. Are we good? Marines, please don't leave here thinking anybody's angry. No one is. And we here on Parris Island, there are things that we can tighten up, and we will. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work that we do here. I want to leave you with this thought. I want you to know that as I was walking through Congress, and I had an opportunity to talk to about 13 congressmen and senators in 2 days, I tell stories about what you're doing. I tell stories about Marines that I've met, families that I've met, UVAs that are working hard. I tell your story. And they sit back and they go, oh. So what you do matters. This transformation process that we talk about, I think we got it right. And we couldn't do it. We would fail if we didn't have the quality of Marines that are sitting here before me. So I ask you to just talk about this a little bit, figure out where you are, what you got to do, what you got to tighten up. Are you the Marine that you came in to be? Thank you for your attention today, and Semper Fi.